We expect Carolina to keep adding to its roster for next season, but right now, is it better than last year's team? The answer might be closer than you think.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, May 10th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea, joined by our guy, Coach Pat Kilby, who just finished a softball game and making the other team really mad because he's a jerk. You're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out to all you everydayers out there, as well as all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Pac, this is a super fun show, and I can't wait for it today. We're going to answer a question that was posed to me earlier this week. And forgive me, for the life of me, I can't remember who asked it of me, but I loved it. And I said, I'm going to use that when Pac and I record later this week. So here's the question. Carolina's roster, as of today, is it better than last year's team? So Pac, that's where we're headed today. By the way, a little quick piece of news from yesterday. Cade Tyson has officially signed for next year. And reminder, that is not no big deal until that, I'm in and it's signed on the dotted line. Nothing is locked in. So this is great news. Cade Tyson, officially a Tar Heel for life, baby. That's right. Okay, so Pat, here we go. Segment one. We're going to break this up into looking at the backcourt and wings, the front court. In the next segment, we'll look at starters and bench. Towards the end, we'll look at offense versus defense and the coaching staff, things like that. And then Pac will make an ultimate decision on, is the roster right now better than last year's team? So this is no hypotheticals at all. This is all fact about what we know right now. Okay, Pac, let me set the current roster for everyone so they got a frame of reference. There are 10 scholarship players currently on the team. I'll go freshmen up to fifth-year seniors. Alphabetical order: James Brown, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell. That's the freshman. Sophomores: Elliot Cadeau, Zayden High. Juniors, 3 of them: Seth Trimble, Cade Tyson, Jalen Washington. No fourth-year seniors, 2 fifth-year seniors: RJ Davis, Jae'lyn Withers. So, Pat, let's start with the backcourt and the wings. We're going to group them together for the purposes of this conversation. As you look at the group of last year's backcourt and wings versus this year, yes or no, is this upcoming year's team better today?
Yes, I think so. So last year's we had Elliot, we have RJ, Cormac, Seth Trimble, and Paxson Wojcik. So we get 3 of those back. We get Elliot back, we get RJ back, and we get Trimble back. And that alone, to me, makes it better because we get those 3 back, but with an added year of experience and growth. And so that's really massive to me. But then we're talking about taking those 3 and adding Cade Tyson, Ian Jackson, and Drake Powell to the mix. We've significantly upgraded our talent right there. I mean, if we have the best backcourt in the country next year, it will not be a shock to me. And that group is just loaded. They're deep. Seth is only going to continue to improve. Ian and Drake are coming in as 5 stars. Cade Tyson was one of the best shooters in the country last year statistically. There's just not many weaknesses in that group. And so I think the answer is yes, they are better.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I mean, the depth, the talent, when you look at this Pack, basically as you just said, you've added a year extra of those 3 guys that were the 3 main backcourt rotation guys, or at least, not counting the wing with Cormac. And then you've basically traded Cormac Ryan and Paxson Wojcik out, and Cade Tyson, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell in. I mean, due respect to Cormac and Paxson, this is a better unit, unequivocally. And if they're not the best backcourt in the nation, as you said, Pac, I'm curious to see who could rival them. But at worst, you got to consider them top 5. I cannot wait to see the jump that Elliot Cadeau makes this year, Pac. I think it's going to be massive. Even if RJ grows just incrementally, right? A massive leap from both Elliot and Seth, I think, would be huge for this team. Really curious to see what Cade Tyson delivers and the 2 freshmen. And they're just so good I am stoked for this backcourt. Can't agree with you more. Yes, on the backcourt, it is better than last year's backcourt. Let's switch back to the front court. Again, you start.
Okay, so front court from last year, we're looking at Armando Bacot, Harrison Ingram, Jalen Washington, Jae'lyn Withers, Zayden High, James Okonkwo. This year, obviously, we're losing Armando Bacot, which is a massive, massive loss. Losing James Okonkwo to the transfer portal. We have Jalen Washington, Jae'lyn Withers, Zayden High, and we're adding James Brown to the mix as a freshman. So as of right now, I think that it's definitely not as good as last year. I mean, that's with Armando being gone and us not having filled that spot yet, I think it's safe to say we're going to experience some type of drop off. And I have concerns with this group. You know, it feels like we have a bunch of 4 men right now and no true 5. And so, I mean, I guess you could make the argument for Jalen Washington to be the true 5, but even then, it still feels like he's more of a pick and pop, perimeter oriented type player. And so with this group, I just don't feel like we have a cemented 5-man. I feel like there's weaknesses defensively and in rebounding. And so I do have my concerns. I would go with last year's group over this one.
Yeah, I have to agree with you here as well. I mean, losing both Armando and I know you mentioned Harrison's name, but I mean, that's another critical loss because of everything he brought to the table. Not just shooting, not just bully ball, not just infectious energy. I mean, it's so many different intangibles that Harrison brought to the table, and you've lost both of those guys, and you really haven't replaced them yet. Basically, it's Bacot and Ingram out, James Brown in, and I mean that just ain't doing it. And yes, you will have a year's growth of both Jalen's and Zayden, but none of those guys, as you said, project to me as the guys that you want to roll with in totality, whether it's, and what I think a lot of people disagree about, Pac, that we've heard pushback on over and over again. And I think you would agree with this is some people will say Jalen Washington, I feel really strong and really good about him. And I hope that's correct. But even if it's not a full enough group from a depth standpoint. So whether Jalen Washington's a starter or not, you got to have either somebody that plays before him or somebody that plays after him. And it just got to be there. Agreed or disagree?
No, I totally agree. And, you know, the thing about, I hate to say this, but the thing about putting all of our eggs in the Jalen Washington basket is, number one, I mean, there's no really arguing. He's not a true traditional post like Carolina's had in the past. But the other thing is, you know, he has battled injuries. And so since he's been at Carolina, he's been healthy. So hopefully that's in the past.
Well, you just jinxed the Pack, so way to go.
My bad, but, you know, so to back your point up, you know, even if we do put our eggs in the Jalen Washington basket and rock with him at the 5, the room is not full enough because of injuries, because of the fact that we need depth with the pace that we play. We need defensive diversity. And so there's definitely a lot of questions surrounding that room right now.
Also, all I can think of as you're talking about Jalen Washington's basket is Jalen Washington on an Easter egg hunt, bending down, trying to get Easter eggs. And I really want to know what Jalen Washington's Easter basket looks like. So if somebody could like Photoshop that so we could get an idea and share it with Pac and I or the show account on Twitter, we'd love to see that. Okay, Pac, we've evaluated this thing by position groups. We think the backcourt right now and wings collectively are better than last year's, and we feel that the front court is not as good as last year's. Folks, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Agree with us, disagree on both sides of that. Now, we've evaluated it by position group, but what about the starters and the bench? Better, worse than last year? That's the next place we're going to unpack. Is the Carolina team for next year right now better than last year's team? We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, Pac, I'm stoked for the NBA playoffs going on right now. Wouldn't it be cool to go to a game, heck, even on a whim? Well, good news. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Pac, The Thunder, literally playing on Thursday night. Maybe you could hop over to a game some point in that series. How rad would that be? Game Time would be a great place to do it. I often worry about my tickets, like my third-party tickets, being bogus, but with Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. I love that peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Let's next move as we have this conversation where we're talking about, is Carolina's team currently, right now, today, Friday, May 10th, better than the 23-24 team was? We've already looked at the backcourt, the front court. Hey, Pac, why don't you talk to us about the starters? Give us last year's starting lineup, and then what you and I currently today would both project.
Yeah, so last year we had Elliot Cadeau at the 1, RJ at the 2, Cormac at the 3, Harrison playing the 4, and Armando at the 5. This year, this is just a projected lineup based on current roster. Elliot at the 1, RJ at the 2. So we've got continuity there. We've got both of those guys back. Now, projected 3 new bodies in the rest of the starting lineup. Ian Jackson at the 3, Cade Tyson at the 4, Jalen Washington at the 5. And so, obviously that's 3 new starters is a major change. One of those is a freshman. One of those is a transfer. And one of those has been a guy that's played, majority backup role for Armando. And so that's definitely leaves a lot of question marks, a lot of things to be answered. In a lot of ways, I think that this group has qualities that last year's group didn't. But overall, just minus the presence of a true 5 like Armando Bacot, I tend to think that this starting group is not as good. And while I like a lot of things that, you start talking about Ian Jackson, the way he can score and the pace he can play at, Cade Tyson's 3-point shooting ability, there are some things that this group could do that could make them very dangerous offensively.
Yes.
But it's just, like I said, without a true 5 and not fully having, it's not that I doubt Jae'lyn, but I do have some questions around it. I think that this year's projected starting group is not as good as last year's.
Yeah. And Pac, let's recognize that not everyone will agree with our predicted top 5. Obviously Elliot and RJ is going to be a no-brainer, but with the other 3, and again, remember, folks, let me just keep reiterating, as of right now, what the 10 scholarship players Carolina has right now, this is what Pac and I, even individually, separately, came to this decision, right? Like, I don't think it's necessarily ideal to have Cade Tyson at the 4, but you're not missing that shooting, and you need it. And so with what the guys have right now, I trust the consistency and output that we've seen from Ian or from Cade Tyson so far, and what we expect Ian to bring in, over perhaps like the inconsistency of Jae'lyn Withers. I could see an argument, Pac, depending on development, for Seth Trimble over Ian Jackson early and just going 3 guards. And I know Ian's a guard too, but he's just got that 6'5" height, a couple more inches on Seth. So I would definitely hear an argument for that, like Seth over Ian early in the starting lineup. Or I think some people might argue for not Ian yet, Cade at the 3, maybe Jae'lyn Withers at the 4, but I don't feel comfortable with that either. So any permutation of this starting lineup I've tried, this is what I just keep coming back to with the 10 that the Tar Heels have right now. Pac, let me ask you one other question before we move to the bench. You as a coach, you know that you have your starting 1 and your starting 2 coming back. Your starting 2 is the reigning ACC Player of the Year, first team All-American, should be the National Preseason Player of the Year. Your 1 is a guy that is an elite facilitator, great athlete, speed out the gym, and should be developing a better shot. Knowing that they are coming back intact, a year older, wiser, and more experienced, how excited are you if you're Hubert Davis that no matter regardless anything else, I've got Elliot and I've got RJ manning the backcourt?
Well, I mean, you're thrilled. It's not really a secret anymore. Experienced guard play wins games in March, period. And when you've got one of the best to do it,
if they're on the court, Pack, if they're on the court,
if they're on the court.
Sorry, that's low. I'm sorry.
You got RJ, who's one of the best to do it in a Carolina uniform. And so that makes you feel great. He's got the scoring. He's got the shooting. He can get a bucket when you need to get a bucket. And then you got Elliot, like you said, he's got the ability to find, holes in a defense that not just anybody has. He has elite vision, elite facilitating ability, and he can put the ball right on the money where it needs to be. And so when you have those two, and then like we talked about, that we've got depth behind them. We trust Seth, we trust Cade Tyson and what he's going to be bringing, and then obviously what Ian can do. It just makes you feel really good about your backcourt and what you've got in them. And, it makes me feel good about how they can bring the other guys along. Guard play just makes everybody better. It makes the coaches look better. It makes the big men look better. It makes the wings look better. Guard play makes basketball go around. And so Carolina's definitely not going to have to worry about that in the 24-25 season.
That's comfortable. I love that. Pat, keep going. Take us to this bench.
Yeah, so the bench, 23-24 bench, Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington, Jae'lyn Withers. And it was really pretty strongly those three.
That's right.
And then after that, Paxson Wojcik, Zayden High, and James Okonkwo. So the predicted or projected bench for 24-25 season.
As of today, let me remind us of that one more time. As of right now.
As of right now, is Seth Trimble, Jae'lyn Withers, Drake Powell, Zayden High, and James Brown. Now, I'm going to just start off with saying I like this bench a lot that we've got for 24-25. Like we've said, Seth is going to be a year better. And he has really, I feel like he's just grown in that sixth man role. He brings a ton of defensive energy. He does the things that help you win basketball games. And we saw this year, albeit it's not a high volume of shots, he's an improved shooter. So he's doing some really good things. I only expect him to continue to get better. Then we've got Jae'lyn Withers, who hopefully experiences some growth. The one I'm really excited about is Drake Powell.
Yeah.
Obviously he's a freshman, so there's question marks, but the versatility that he's going to bring offensively and defensively makes him a nightmare. I think he's going to be a very good player for Carolina. And then we get Zayden High, a year older, and James Brown. So I like the bench. I like the depth. I like our ability right now. I would feel comfortable playing four of these guys in a big game.
James Brown being the outlier there?
James Brown being the outlier there. I would feel comfortable with the other four playing in a big game for us right now. And so that to me is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at that bench and not paying any attention to the starters higher up on my screen, the athleticism, the defensive potential of that unit alone, I mean, it could cause problems. And I know a lot of people will probably say, look, okay, I hear you guys talking about Drake as a defender. Freshmen take a long time. Yes, maybe with some of the team principles, but this has been Drake Powell's game for a long, long time now. From the moment we heard about Drake Powell, it was defense first, offense is catching up. Let's remember back to freshman Seth Trimble. He got it. Like the individual defense, it felt like for the most part, and Pack, correct me if you saw different things, but I felt like he operated well within the team defensive principles from day one, at least in terms of games. Drake Powell should be able to do that too. And when you have both of those guys and just lock dudes up, come on, give me that.
Yeah. To me, especially from a coach's perspective, defense and rebounding, those are the two things you kind of have some control over, and they get you on the court. They get you trust developed with your coaches and your teammates real quick. And I really think that Drake Powell does both of those things really well. And yes, I get there are those question marks, like you mentioned, especially offensively. But when the kid can come in and guard and rebound, that fills holes and helps us win ball games. And so I think he's going to be a really good player for us.
Man, this team could run a lot, Pack. And I mean, it's not even whole. And I already feel like that with these 10. They could run. Oh, man, I can't wait to see it. Well, Pack, you just mentioned defense and rebounding and potential offensive inefficiencies, excuse me. We have identified that our answer for starters is no. The starting group today would not be as good although there are some potential things they can do really well. But the bench, yes, we feel like right now they are better. What about the offense and defense? What about the coaching staff? And Pack, we got to give everybody our final overall answer. Is this year's team better today than it was last year? We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monopoly Go. Okay, Pack, game off. Enough with our little, experiment here. We got to pause. We got to talk about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've talked about that already, Isaac. Come on. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. Let me tell you about a couple of them. You can get unique stickers to trade with friends to complete albums that win you big prizes. You can get cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with and put them in Jalen Washington's basket. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of these include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Pack, speaking of Monopoly Go, several people have suggested to me that we should use some Monopoly money to infuse the NIL coffers and have more money to be able to dole out. So if you could just start printing some of that, we can get on it.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked position groups. We've talked starters and bench. Now, Pack, it's time to talk offense, defense, coaching, and our big overall answer is this year's team right now today better than last year's. Pack, where do you want to go first? Offense or defense? You pick.
Let's start with the offensive end.
Do it.
So, last year I felt like we had a really diverse offense. We had Armando that we could throw it down to. We had Harrison that could play from the perimeter, but he could also back you down. We had RJ and Cormac that could fill it up. And then after that, I thought, with Elliot's shooting struggles, Seth just not getting a volume of shots up, and then obviously after that the bench struggled to score for us. I thought last year was diverse in some ways, but then whenever we got to our depth, we just really struggled. This year is a little bit different. We don't, as of right now, we don't have a true five. We have Jae'lyn that's playing there, and we've got a lot of shooting, I feel like. And so in that way, I feel better. I feel like as good as Cormac was, Cade Tyson's a better shooter and a better offensive player. I really feel like that. And so Ian Jackson is going to be able to put the ball in the bucket. RJ, we know, can score. Elliot's going to be a year improved. And Jalen Washington can stretch the floor.
That's right.
And then I feel like our bench is going to be better offensively as well. Jae'lyn Withers will be a year improved. Trimble will be a year improved. Drake Powell is going to offer some good things. And so as of right now, I know it might sound crazy. I feel really good about our offense. I like the way that it's structured. And, it's just there's enough shooting out there. It's like, okay, what are you going to do to Carolina to slow that down? Are you going to try to stop the shooting? Well, if you do that, that leaves RJ on the island and he can go get a bucket. We all know that. But if you stop RJ and you focus on him, we've got shooters all around him. And it's like you mentioned earlier, the ability to play with pace with this group is off the charts. We can just run people ragged. And so I like the transition aspect of this team and the way that that's looking. So my answer is yes. I feel, maybe to some people's surprise, I feel better about this group offensively than last year's team.
And I would say, how could you not, Pack? Because not only is it pace, but it's space. You think about that starting five we named. I mean, that group plays wide open, Pack. If I'm talking to Jalen Washington, I say, yeah, get in the lane sometimes, but get out of the way. Give Elliot and RJ driving lanes. Give Ian driving lanes, for crying out loud. Let Cade Tyson, let's pick and pop. Let's drive and kick to Cade Tyson. Let him shoot wide open shots. I mean, dude, I love the potential of this offense, of what it could be. And again, we don't even know the wholeness of what it looks like. I think part of that, and I know we're not talking hypotheticals at all today, but part of that is just why I want to be really cautious about who the other scholarships remaining go to. Okay. Pack, anything else on the offense before we switch sides to D?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay, I'm with you. Right now, I would say yes. We feel good about the offense, better than last year's was. I think here's part of it for me, Pack. Remember, there were pretty consistent stretches of the offense getting bogged down last year, and because the defense was as elite as it was, they were able to cover those sins. I don't see, and it's May and it's on paper, I just don't see those defense or those offensive lapses right now. All right, Pack, take us to the defense.
Yeah, defensively, like you just mentioned, we were really good last year. We were elite. We had guys that guarded multiple positions. We were able to switch better than I can ever remember us switching screens. We just did a much better job. And I'll say a lot of that is credit to Cormac and Harrison coming on the roster and with their size and their mobility being able to guard multiple positions. This year has a lot of defensive questions yet to be answered. And we know, obviously, that with this projected lineup, there's a little bit of a size deficiency. We're looking at Elliot being, 6 foot, 6'1", RJ being around the same, Ian Jackson being at 6'5", Cade Tyson 6'7", and Jalen Washington at 6'10". So, there's no true 7-foot shot blocker. There's none of that rim protection. But there is, with this group, there's speed, there's ball pressure. And that's kind of where I would like to see this group go. I'd like to see us use that athleticism and speed people up and see if we can get them to play our game. But in doing that, that leaves a lot of questions to be answered. And so as of now, I would say that this group is not as good defensively as the 23-24 group, but there's a potential for them to be good in a different way.
That's a good word, Pack, because I think almost in a Leaky Black sort of way. Let me explain what I mean. A lot of people didn't recognize Leaky Black's prowess if they were box score lookers because he's not racking up a ton of blocks or steals. Because Leaky didn't have to, because he did his defensive work early, meaning he would get in position, be where he needed to be, stay in front of his guy, operate within team defensive principles where he's not having to risk on those kind of things. Now, he could do it when he needed to, and we saw it sometimes. And I think that's what this group would have the potential to be. You don't have the luxury right now of a big-time shot blocker behind you, and that perhaps is something that needs to be addressed. But with what you said, the athleticism, the length, the wingspan, the quickness of potentially what this group brings to the table, if you could inhabit that Leaky Black mindset, do your work early and operate within a team defensive principle as a unit, and I know it takes time and trust to get there, but there's possibilities, Pack. As you said, I love that point you made. Quickly, before we give our big picture answer, Pack, coaching staff. It's funny, we've had 3 S's, 3 no's. The coaching staff might be the deciding factor here. When you look at the coaching staff, what we had last year, what we had this year, and you can lay those guys out here in just a second. Yes or no, is the coaching staff better right now than last year?
Yeah, so last year's staff, Hubert Davis, Brad Frederick, Sean May, Jeff Lebo, Pat Sullivan, Marcus Page. Same staff coming for this year. So to me, obviously that year of continuity, that year of working together, the year of chemistry that they built naturally makes them better. And then, not to mention, Hubert Davis, Brad, Sean May, Jeff Lebo, Pat Sullivan, they've been together since Hubert's been hired. Marcus Page, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay. So Marcus was an addition last year. And so now as a whole, they've all had a year together. Love Hubert, love that staff, love the things that they've done. I think they're only going to continue to get better. I really do. And so to me, the coaching staff is an absolute yes.
Yeah. I mean, I there's nothing to add, just agreement. And so it was great last year. Folks remember, or maybe you don't remember, maybe you don't know, teams were able to add 2 more in-game coaches, whereas previously Pat Sullivan and Marcus Page's role hadn't been able to coach in game. Now they can. Value add for both of those guys. You love it. So Pack, let's give our big picture answer to this initial question. Yes or no? Carolina's roster as of today, is it better than last year's team? As a reminder, we said yes to the backcourt and wings, to the bench, to the offense and coaching. So that's 4 yeses. And we said no to the front court, to the starters, and to the defense. So 4 yeses, 3 nos. But Pack, is it just as simple as that or not? What's your answer?
See, overall, I think we're not as good. And, when you look at it, like I look at the starters, I think 3 of our 5 starters this year, this upcoming year, are better than last year's. But the deficit in the backcourt the deficit in the front court.
Buddy, that backcourt ain't got no deficit.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The deficit in the front court is extremely concerning to me, and I weight that really heavily. And so, to me, Carolina, as of right now, is not as good as the 23-24 team. But like I said when we were talking about defense, this team has a really strong chance to be good in a different way. And so I'm encouraged by this team. I love the outlook of it so far, just not quite as good as 23-24 yet.
That's my exact answer. It's the front court lack that causes me to weigh that no very heavily, which truthfully would also cause me to weigh the starters no pretty heavily, which in truth also causes me to weigh the defensive no's heavily. Depending on what else happens, our answers to this might and could change. But Packett, at some point, you're looking at, you return the 6 who are all a year older. But the question is, does that extra year of experience for Cadeau, Davis, Trimble, the Jalen's, and Zayden High, plus the addition of Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, Cade Tyson, and James Brown, offset the losses of Armando Bacot, Harrison Ingram, Cormac Ryan, Paxson Wojcik, and James Okonkwo? In some ways, yes. But critically, because of where it doesn't work, then our answer has to be no. I'm in full agreement with you. I love this exercise. Whoever you were that recommended this, I apologize that I don't remember. It wasn't in our Discord because I would have named that and written it down, but it was somewhere else. And I'm just so grateful for it because I think this is a great exercise and one that we should probably continue to revisit, Pack, when more roster additions happen of like, all right, what about now? Do we feel the same? And we don't have to make a full show out of it again, but now that we have this baseline, we can reassess. So I love that. Folks, thanks so much for joining us. It's been another great week on the show. Hope you've enjoyed it. If there's any kind of breaking news, I don't really expect any right now because of just where things are at and not going, but we'll watch for some of these names that Carolina has been associated with if there's any movement on them. If you're not subscribed to the show on audio and video, do that super easy on both whatever audio podcast platform you listen to or here on YouTube if you're watching. For those of you who aren't part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, we would absolutely love to have you. It's free to join. The link for that's in the show notes. I always say, come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community, man. It is rich and great and awesome. We hope that you have a great weekend. We want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again on Monday. Pack Kilby right. But until then, peace.